This video is a continuation from Creating Characters, Part 1. Now we move on to something that is very video game specific, and that is the player character's abilities and how other characters react to those abilities. If you are playing a game like Spider-Man, how do other characters that you encounter in the game, be it humans or supervillains, how do they react to Spider-Man's abilities, right? The web shooting, the swinging, the super strength, the wall climbing. This is very much a part of the player feeling like, oh, that's me, because I did this thing, I took this action, and this character is commenting on it, either in a line of dialogue or they're building a big nefarious contraption to stop me in my specific super abilities. Think about how these characters actually react, because this is the reality, right, of the world that you're creating. That you have a character who has special abilities, or they're hyper good at something that feels like a normal ability, and then other characters actually react to that, because those are key pivotal moments that will really make the world feel alive and reactive. Here's an important topic. What makes a character instantly recognizable? Obviously, in a video game, it's their appearance, right? How the character design is created. So what the artists have done, what you've worked with, either you yourself or with artists to create this character design. But also how they are introduced into a scene. So if you've got some bloody murder scene, and yet you've got this cool character smoking a cigarette, unfazed by it, that gives you an impression that this character has seen some terrible things, and they're kind of hardened, they're calloused to it, right? On the flip side of that, if same bloody scene, and you've got someone who's vomiting in the corner, then you get an idea of this character has a very human, but maybe a weak constitution to scenes like this. So you learn something about them instantly. But when I think about how does a character make a splash in a video game scene, I often think of games like Borderlands does this, but it's also a very Guy Ritchie film sort of technique where if you've ever seen the movie Snatch, when a character is introduced, it's sort of a title sequence where they're doing something and you get like a sneak peek of how this character behaves in the world, and then a freeze frame and maybe like a splash on the of their name on the screen. This is very, very easy for me to sort of process in my brain, like how am I wanting this character to appear and really nail the landing as far as the character, the audience understands who this character is. Play around with this. Really think about what type of character that you've created, and then how you want to introduce them to the world, because the player will be walking through whatever world or level, and suddenly this character is there, and you really want them to stand out and make a splash. Let's talk about some ways to differentiate characters. So this is beyond the point of how they make their grand entrance. But when you are crafting characters and you've got more than one or two, how are you going to differentiate them? Let's go with what I consider one of the easiest first, and this is the length of their speech. When I talk to this character, do they respond in a short and pithy response? Is it long-winded and sort of telling me a tale? This can very much color the way I perceive a character when I'm playing, when I encounter them in a game. Be careful that your long-winded characters don't eat up too much player attention and start boring them with long dialogues. Another one that writers use quite frequently are accents. So this person comes from a different area of town, this person comes from a different part of the world, or if the game you're making is taking place in fantasy worlds or sci-fi worlds, planets apart, you can obviously spend a lot of time developing languages for those races and cultures. And then, of course, these characters, when they're speaking some sort of common tongue, they will have various words that they use to show that, hey, remember, I'm not from this area, I'm from a different place. The last way to differentiate characters that we're going to cover in this video is my personal favorite, and this is the character's personal reaction to the events occurring. So this is when you dig into who do they love, or what do they love, who do they hate, what do they hate, their personal strengths and weaknesses, and take that into context with the situation that's occurring. A grandmother just made oatmeal raisin cookies, and you have defined one character as a lover of, of oatmeal raisin cookies. This is playing out before them, right? The cookies are there, the smells are wafting up. They can almost, they're salivating at the touch of cinnamon that Grandma put in these cookies. And now I'm somewhat salivating. The character is me, because the player knows that this character is all into oatmeal raisin cookies. They expect that character to have a reaction, and of course, when that character does have a reaction that is just, you know, drooling, and they can't focus on anything because the cookies are here and they must eat one. This is rewarding for the player, because they're sitting here saying, all right, this is clearly distracting this other character. This differentiates characters, right? Because not every character is so weak in the knees for the oatmeal raisin cookies. So that's a list of some of the highest priority things I think you should focus on, but there is so much more that you can deep dive into with character development. Each character has internal and external goals, where they want to be inside of themselves, where they want to be in the world, what sort of things they want to accomplish, their birthplace, right? What's their family situation like? What's their social status and their education? And how does that affect things in the story? How do others perceive them? Is their personality one of an optimist or a pessimist, right? Do they see the glass half empty or half full? The list goes on, but you really need some of this as far as grounding your main cast, because you are going to be playing off of these aspects of the character over and over again. As a quick recap to what we covered in this video, we've got the purpose of a character in the game. We've got the two most important aspects of a character's character, which are their proficiencies and their fears and weaknesses. We asked the question, who do they love and who do they hate? We want to know how they respond and react to the player character and the player character's abilities. We also want to know what makes them instantly recognizable on the screen and memorable. We talked about 3 different ways of differentiating characters. And then of course we went through a small list of the infinite items that could further define a character. And that's it for this video. If you haven't already, click like and subscribe below and that bell notification, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Dum 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 dum.